big places, right?
Yeah, it has to be. That's actually sometimes a limiting factor of what cities they can do, because it has to be big enough. What? Okay. So it has to be the time of year. Also, they like to geographically spread it out. They're not going to do every show in Massachusetts. So there's a lot of things, and they decide that all during the year.
How many weeks of the year do you travel?
They have 8 shows. We're just about this. Ken Law's Brattle Book Show. We have a nice, big, old-looking book here. Tell me a little bit what it is.
Well, my grandmother brought this book from Italy when she moved here in 1980. It had been in our family for, I would say, 150 years, slowly collecting autographs from various famous people.
And you think, now where do you think some of them came from?
I believe some of them came from, my family owns a hotel in Sorrento. They owned one in Florence in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and I believe that a lot of these signatures are from people that were their guests.
So, but you can't absolutely say, but you think that's what
my grandmother was pretty sure, but I still cannot prove either any of this.
Well, one of the things that's interesting, and this book is absolutely crammed full of autographs of well-known, famous people, authors, scientists, musicians. Now, let's open to one page in particular. And tell me the couple that we were here. Now, you have a Steinbeck.
Well, that's John Steinbeck's note, and it's particularly written for this book. It says about being the illustrious company in this book. So my grandmother was positive that he knew about the book and was happy to be a part of it.
And what they did is they obviously got autographs from, whether they were guests at the hotel, or friends of guests, or acquaintances, they obviously got autographs and they pasted them and put them in.
They did.
Some of them they put in, pasted well. Let's look at the next page. And again, there are all sorts, but I thought these three, you have Leo Tolstoy, Rudyard Kipling, Mark Twain, and just many. I mean, there are way more than we could possibly show. Now, one of the things that always comes up when you're looking at something like this is value. Now, have you done anything on value or looked up anything?
I have had
Great.
appraised by a large auction.
You can't even hardly see it.
Basically told me it was worth
Yeah, some of them are pretty faded.
Worth nothing. Well, that
Doesn't show up that well on TV.
I'm not quite sure what they had said. I don't see how they could have come to that conclusion. But also, another thing that we were talking about, you had looked up a few of the autographs on eBay.
I have.
And now you would mention specifically the Mark Twain.
That page has Mark Twain, Rudyard Kipling, and Leon Tolstoy.
Seems to be a little bit more.
Well,
see, this isn't in a full book.
Yeah, it's a whole scrapbook.
About 35,000.
So there are multiple names on a page. You don't want to break it apart.
Some pages just have one. Some have like signed autographs. Pictures.
Yes.
Like there's a picture of Mussolini that's autographed.
There are hundreds of items in it. So really, to do the proper appraisal is to go through item by item by item by item. But I also find it interesting what you looked up, because a Steinbeck like this, and when you look things up online, eBay, whatever the online services is, they can be very deceiving, because if you really don't know how to judge what it should be or the ballpark, then you can get really thrown off. Let me just say, $35,000 is way out of line for this. If you had a long letter of Steinbeck's going into his, maybe even a partial manuscript, maybe that would get $30,000. A little note like this with your book might be more like $500 or $1,000. The Mark Twain you were talking about would be in the $300 to $500 range. So what you looked up online is way off. That's the bad news. The good news is this book is worth thousands of dollars. I mean, you have some spectacular autographs. There's Verdi, there's Zola, there's Twain, there's Edison, and on and on and on and on. I would say a retail price selling it as a book would be a minimum of $25,000 to $35,000. Now, I know you had some other questions about that. Do you have some?
I was curious as to if we take some of these signatures out, maybe the Verity, the musical notes with the signature, Massenet, if we extract those from the book and make them separate, would that have any relevance on the value?
It would probably have a lot of relevance on the value because it's an interesting item. Now, aesthetically, if this came from your grandmother, was that?
Yes.
And it was in the hotel, it would be sort of really nice to keep the collection together as a collection. But if you're looking at it purely monetarily, the collection is worth way more as individual items. So if you took these apart, now I'll also point out one thing too, so we'll stay with the same pages, is a lot of this is done back to back.
Yes.
So it would be an expense on the ones that don't come out easily to have a conservative move. So that would add cost to it. But I would estimate that if you took these apart one at a time, that $25,000 to $35,000 retail might turn into a $50,000 to $75,000 retail, and maybe even more, because there's no way we have time here to look at each individual. So your grandmother gave you a great gift. Emotionally and sentimentally, it has great value. But the nice part about it is monetarily. But also, just be careful. A little knowledge sometimes online is not the greatest thing. Thank you for bringing
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Is there anything else that I can add, or?
I believe you've answered all my questions.
Well, I know that you had a problem also. You were saying that the binding came off on your shirt.
It did. I was holding it so tight I didn't want to drop it that I'm filthy, and I just want you to know that I didn't come here with a dirty shirt.
Well, one of the things is the binding itself on this isn't terribly valuable. You could do some work. You could take it to a binder, and they could help so that it's not flaking and coming off. Or what you could also do is put a cover on it. Nothing permanent, but that way at least you can carry it and hold it tight to your, and it's not going to be all over
Right.
you or your hands or whatever.
Thank you.
It's a great item. It's a really great item.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I would love at some time to just one page at a time and go through. So monetarily, piece at a time, better. Keeping it together, though aesthetically, sentimentally, might be better. But that's a decision for you.
Absolutely.
Thank
I'll
you.
think long and hard about that.
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It's fun, and I would really.